Have you ever wondered whether the greatest secrets in history are truly kept hidden from the public eye? From legendary secret societies like the Illuminati, to top-secret government experiments on psychic powers in the United States, and even forbidden texts believed to hold the power to change the fate of all humanity, these are mysteries that have yet to be solved. Join us as we uncover the stories that history never wanted you to know in today's video. So fasten your seatbelt as we dive into today's mystery. But first, you'll have incredible luck if you like, and subscribe before this video ends. Conspiracy theories about secret bases and UFOs in Antarctica. Antarctica has always been seen as a cold and distant land, almost untouched by human footprints. But for those who are fascinated by mysteries and conspiracy theories, this place is a treasure trove that has yet to be fully unraveled. If there is anywhere left on Earth that might still be keeping enormous secrets, then it is surely Antarctica, with stories that, whenever mentioned, are enough to spark curiosity and make people wonder. Right after World War II ended, the United States military carried out a large-scale operation called Operation High Jump. This was an event recorded very clearly in history, when the US deployed thousands of soldiers along with dozens of large ships and many advanced aircraft of that era, all heading directly toward Antarctica. The officially stated objective was to test equipment under cold conditions, to research survival methods for the military, and to affirm America's influence in this region. However, many people do not believe that explanation. They ask why such a large force would be needed just to conduct tests or survey the icy land. The figures about military strength, ships, and equipment brought to this uninhabited land have fueled countless rumors that behind the operation there is a secret the US military would never want to reveal. Conspiracy theories began to appear more densely, especially those related to the secret activities of Nazi Germany in Antarctica before and during World War II. According to many stories spread in the press and in unverified documents, the Germans chose Antarctica as their final hiding place, where they could build underground bases beneath the perpetual ice, completely undetected by anyone. There were rumors that German engineers and scientists constructed huge pyramids or underground cities, equipped with technology far beyond their time, technology that even today we still cannot recreate. Some people believe that the Germans managed to make contact with an extraterrestrial civilization or discovered ancient secrets beyond imagination, and from there developed secret weapons and disc-shaped flying vehicles that the world would later call UFOs. The rumors did not stop at old stories. The search for mysteries in Antarctica continued to explode, thanks to the development of satellite technology and Google Earth. Today, with just a computer connected to the internet, anyone can explore every corner of Antarctica's surface without ever leaving their living room. That is why many people spend hours scanning satellite images around areas like Ross Island and Beaufort Island. These are places with complex terrain, full of volcanic ranges, glaciers, and enormous rocks rising out of the endless white ice. When they zoom in to the maximum, they often spot strange shadows, rocks with unexplained shapes, or long cracks whose origins are unclear. Some immediately call these the traces of alien bases or landing sites for spaceships. Internet forums are thus flooded with posts analyzing, commenting, and debating about the authenticity of these blurry images. Some people claim they have seen an actual UFO base built under the ice, or at the very least, evidence of some strange civilization that humanity once left behind. However, when scientists, imaging experts, and serious researchers got involved, they pointed out that most of these controversial satellite images are actually the product of nature. These could simply be the shadows of mountain ranges when the sun is low on the horizon, or just an oddly shaped block of ice formed over years by melting and cracking. In many cases, the human mind automatically searches for familiar shapes in inanimate objects, a phenomenon called pareidolia. That is why a shadow on the ice or a rock with unusual angles is enough for people to imagine a spaceship, or even the traces of extraterrestrial beings. Although most of these discoveries have reasonable explanations based on natural phenomena, Antarctica remains a place where the human imagination has never been limited. The account of an American naval flight engineer about a cave in strange objects in Antarctica. Among the many mysterious stories surrounding the southernmost reaches of the Earth, the testimony of a former U.S. Navy flight engineer, known only by the pseudonym Brian, continues to send chills down the spines of those who hear it. This story became widely known thanks to Linda Moulton Howe, a journalist renowned for her investigations into unusual phenomena, mysteries, and conspiracy theories. Brian was a member of the U.S. Navy's flight crew, stationed at McMurdo Station, the largest American research base in Antarctica. Over the course of 14 years serving there, from 1983 to 1997, he took part in countless missions, ranging from transport flights and rescue operations to long, grueling aerial patrols across the frigid mountain ranges, places so forbidding that only the most seasoned individuals would ever dare to set foot there. During a conversation with Linda Moulton Howe, Brian shared a series of strange events that unfolded throughout his time at McMurdo. One day, as his flight crew was carrying out a mission over the Transantarctic Mountains, they suddenly spotted a group of round objects moving at incredible speed and in perfect unison across the icy sky. These objects did not appear sporadically, but would typically travel in groups, gliding between the towering mountain peaks before vanishing into the cold fog in a matter of seconds. What was remarkable was that this phenomenon did not just occur once, it repeated itself during various flights at different times throughout the year. But that was not all. Brian also recounted an incident that he considered the most unforgettable of his aviation career. During an emergency rescue mission, the flight crew was forced to fly over an area that had been officially designated as off-limits, a no-fly zone where all aircraft were ordered to stay away, either for security reasons or for some other undisclosed danger. As they entered this restricted zone, a bizarre sight appeared before their eyes, a massive cave entrance carved into the thick ice, with a diameter estimated at 60 meters, wide enough to accommodate even a large transport aircraft. As soon as their plane passed over the area, every electronic system and navigation device on board suddenly malfunctioned. The screens flickered non-stop. The altimeter and electronic compass all began displaying abnormal signals as if being jammed or affected by some powerful, unknown force field. The flight crew immediately became concerned, as such occurrences were exceedingly rare. But after they left the vicinity of the cave, all systems returned to normal, as if nothing had happened at all. Brian's story did not end with the chilling details of strange objects or the enormous cave, but continued with how the incident was handled afterward. Upon returning to base, the entire flight crew was ordered to remain absolutely silent about what they had witnessed. They were told never to speak of the incident to anyone, and were also forbidden from flying over that area again. Although every detail of the story remains shrouded in mystery and has never been officially confirmed by any agency, for many people, Brian's testimony only strengthened the belief that Antarctica is much more than just a frozen continent. Buried deep beneath the eternal ice might be secrets that humanity is not yet prepared to face, from unidentified flying objects to vast cave systems that no one knows who created, what they are for, or what may be waiting inside to be revealed. Even now, whenever Brian's story is mentioned, people continue to ask questions about those regions that even scientists and the military cannot access at will. Could there really be immense secrets hidden in Antarctica, or is it all just coincidence? Whatever the answer may be, the frigid southern continent continues to fuel human curiosity and an enduring obsession with mysteries that remain unsolved. Ancient maps and traces of a civilization in Antarctica, 6,000 years ago. In the world of archaeology and geography, nothing stirs the imagination more than ancient maps containing details that modern science has yet to explain. Especially when it comes to Antarctica, this continent has always been at the heart of long-standing mysteries, revolving around maps from centuries ago that feature controversial and unexplained details. One of the most remarkable examples is the series of maps created by Philippe Boisch and Orontius Phineas in the 16th century. What astonished researchers is that, on these maps, Antarctica is depicted as a green continent, completely free from the eternal ice sheet that covers it today. This fact has raised an enduring question. How could European geographers during the Renaissance have such detailed information about a land that humans did not actually set foot on until the early 19th century? There are theories suggesting that there may once have existed prehistoric civilizations advanced enough to survey and chart Antarctica at a time when it was not buried under ice. Some scholars, such as the renowned 2nd century geographer Marinus of Tyre, are believed to have had access to these ancient maps, or at least to records describing Antarctica from even earlier civilizations. Although the evidence remains unclear and most of the original maps or documents have been lost over the centuries, stories of lost knowledge, continue to fuel the imagination of both the academic community and enthusiasts of archaeological mysteries around the world. Nor does it end there. Modern surveys have also uncovered other puzzling traces along the Antarctic coastline. British researcher William James Veal conducted an analysis of high-resolution satellite images along the southern shores of the continent and discovered a series of giant geoglyphs, carvings shaped like human heads wearing tricorn hats, the kind popular in 18th century Europe. The sheer size and placement of these geoglyphs have led many to believe they might be the work of a long-lost civilization existing at a time when Antarctica was not yet shrouded in ice. Of course, mainstream scientists remain cautious about such theories. Many argue that these carvings are merely the result of geological coincidence and natural erosion, or are simply products of human imagination as people try to spot familiar shapes in vague shadows or patches of rock, a psychological phenomenon known as pareidolia. Yet, for those who love to explore the unknown, the appearance of these strange geoglyphs on the Antarctic coast only makes the story of a lost civilization beneath the ice all the more intriguing and mysterious. Prophecies and the ability to foresee the future. Since ancient times, humanity has always longed to know what will happen in the future. That desire has produced a vast trove of legends about prophets and oracles that stretch across cultures around the world. Among them, some of the most famous names include Nostradamus, the prophets of the Bible, the priestesses of ancient Rome, and even the Hopi people of North America. Nostradamus was a renowned prophet who lived in 16th century France. He recorded 942 predictions in the form of short poems written in cryptic language. Many people believe he predicted great disasters such as wars, plagues, and even modern events like the 11th of September attacks. However, most of Nostradamus' prophecies are highly symbolic and extremely ambiguous. The Bible, especially the Book of Revelation, is also an endless source of inspiration for theories about the end times and prophecies about the world's last days. Revelation is filled with countless symbolic images such as the four horsemen, devastating plagues, war, and fire destroying everything. For generations, people have used these passages to interpret events of their own era, from wars to natural disasters. Still, most scholars believe that Revelation was mainly intended to convey a message of hope to believers during difficult times, rather than to foretell specific events in the future. The Hopi, a Native American tribe in North America, also left behind famous prophecies, though theirs are somewhat different. Carved into ancient stones and passed down orally through many generations, the Hopi's warnings focus on the impact of humanity on the environment and on society. They warned that if people continued to pollute, destroy nature, and live with greed, collapse would be inevitable. The Hopi's warnings about the environment remain meaningful to this day, serving as a practical reminder of the consequences of what we are doing to this earth. Science and the soul, is there life after death? For centuries, people have never stopped asking, what happens to us after we die? The topic of life after death was once the domain of religion, philosophy, and legend. However, today, science has also joined the journey to unravel this mystery. Scientists have begun to study a strange phenomenon that occurs precisely at the moment a person is declared clinically dead. Many major hospitals around the world, including George Washington University, have conducted experiments measuring brain activity in patients in critical condition. The results have astonished many experts. Right after patients were taken off life support machines and officially pronounced dead, EEG monitors recorded a series of abnormal brainwaves. Remarkably, these waves could last anywhere from 1 minute to as long as 20 minutes after the heart had stopped beating. According to purely biological explanations, when the heart stops, blood and oxygen no longer flow to the brain, and the neurons fall into a panic state, firing off their last electrical signals before finally dying. Some scientists believe this is simply a normal biological reaction, similar to a flash of light before going out. However, what has left researchers perplexed is that the type of brainwave appearing at that moment is gamma waves, a pattern of brain activity associated with awareness, consciousness, and complex thought processes. Why would a dying brain be able to produce the kind of waves that science believes only appear when a person is awake, alert, and thinking? This question has led to theories that go beyond the limits of traditional medicine. One of the most noteworthy ideas comes from Professor Stuart Hameroff, an anesthesiologist and neuroscientist at the University of Arizona. He believes that human consciousness is not simply a matter of electrical impulses between brain cells, but is also a process occurring at the quantum level inside tiny structures called microtubules within neurons. Professor Hameroff hypothesizes that when the body dies, quantum information does not vanish, but leaves the body and disperses into the universe. If a patient is revived, this information returns, leading to the strange experiences known as near-death experiences. If not, that consciousness continues to exist outside the body, much like the concept of the soul in many ancient cultures. The Roman murder case from 1,800 years ago. While surveying an ancient fortress in Spain, archaeologists uncovered a strange grave that has raised many questions about a mysterious murder nearly 2 millennia ago. The victim was a man, identified as a Roman soldier, who was buried face down in the earth. What made this discovery particularly striking was that both of his feet were missing, and a dagger was found embedded in his back. These unusual details led researchers to speculate about the cause of death and the true identity of this ill-fated soldier. According to the archaeological records, the burial dates to around the 3rd century AD, a time when Roman troops were still present in the ancient land of Hispania. Initial evidence suggests this was not a typical burial ritual for soldiers. Instead, the face-down position and the absence of both feet indicate that this might have been a form of especially severe punishment. One theory is that the victim was guilty of desertion, one of the gravest offenses in the Roman army. The placement of the dagger in his back may signify a sentence reserved for traitors or military criminals. There is also the possibility that this soldier fell victim to a personal vendetta or was executed for some other crime. Against the backdrop of Rome's frequent conflicts with local communities, it is equally possible that he was killed by locals as an act of revenge, and then buried in a humiliating manner as a statement of defiance against Roman rule. This discovery not only helps historians gain deeper insight into the darker aspects of military and social life in ancient Rome, but also raises many questions about justice, law, and the personal tragedies that have been buried by the passage of time. To this day, the true identity of this soldier remains a mystery, and this murder case from 1,800 years ago still has no definitive answer. The mysterious white disc in New Mexico. If you've ever thought that the state of New Mexico was only famous for the Roswell incident and UFO stories, you might have to think again. Recently, the online community of mystery enthusiasts discovered an unusual image while using Google Earth to observe the Sierra Ladrones mountain area. On a mountainside about 34 miles northwest of the Cervelletta National Wildlife Refuge, they spotted an object unlike anything natural. It was a perfectly round, white disc with a diameter of up to 30 feet, standing out in plain sight and seemingly without anything to conceal it. Satellite images showed that this object was a flawless, bright white circle located at an elevation of 7,400 feet above sea level. Internet users immediately began proposing all sorts of theories. Many believed that this was the remnant of a UFO that had crashed to Earth. Others argued that it could be a secret doorway leading into an underground base, perhaps hiding alien technology. However, as these fascinating theories spread across the internet, more practical-minded people began to ask different questions. They pointed out that in arid regions like New Mexico, it is common for people to build large water tanks to supply wildlife and to assist with wildfire control. The disc's bright white color might simply be a special coating designed to reflect sunlight and reduce water evaporation under the intense desert heat. What's strange, though, is that to this day, federal agencies have remained completely silent about the object. No explanations have been provided by land management authorities or wildlife monitoring units. This silence has only made the white disc on Sierra Ladrones Mountain an even greater mystery. Up to now, no one can say for sure what that white disc really is. Perhaps it's just an ordinary structure serving an ecological purpose, or maybe it's a trace of an event that has never been disclosed. But in a world where information spreads at lightning speed, sometimes mystery itself is what turns a tiny spot on the map into the center of global attention. The mysterious human-like skull of Sealand, Denmark. In 2007, a group of workers on Sealand Island in Denmark accidentally discovered a strange skull while digging a drainage pipe beneath an old house. The skull immediately attracted the attention of both the scientific community and those fascinated by mysterious phenomena. What astonished everyone was the unusually large size of its eye sockets. Much larger than those of a modern human skull, along with the prominent canine teeth visible in the upper jaw. After being sent for examination at the University of Copenhagen's Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, experts concluded that the skull did not resemble any known animal species on Earth. Shortly thereafter, samples were sent for radiocarbon dating at the Niels Bohr Institute of the University of Copenhagen. The results showed that the skull may have been buried underground for around 800 years. Almost immediately, a host of theories emerged about the true origin of the skull. Some believe it to be the fossil of an extraterrestrial being that once visited Earth. Others have linked it to the secret society known as the Order of Pegasus Light, an enigmatic organization said to have been founded in the 14th century, which allegedly used Sealand Island as a gathering place to study esoteric knowledge. Some conspiracy enthusiasts argue that the skull is either a relic belonging to members of the secret society or the product of mysterious experiments. To this day, the mysterious skull of Sealand has not been satisfactorily explained, and it continues to inspire thrilling stories about aliens and secret societies in Europe. The mystery of the Philistines, the violent people of the Levant. For centuries, the Philistines have been described in the Bible as a violent and warlike people, the greatest rivals of the ancient Israelites. Yet, what we actually know about their true origins remains scant and unclear. Recently, new archaeological discoveries in the ancient port city of Ashkelon, located on Israel's Mediterranean coast, have provided surprising evidence that helps shed light on some of the mysteries surrounding this people. By excavating a large cemetery containing more than 200 sets of remains dating from the 12th to the 7th centuries BC, scientists have been able to analyze DNA in an effort to trace the origins of the Philistines. The results show that they were not an indigenous people of the Levant. Instead, genetic evidence indicates that the Philistines originated from the Mediterranean region, specifically from Greece, the island of Sardinia, and the Iberian Peninsula. This finding is entirely consistent with ancient records that claim, during the collapse of the great Mediterranean civilizations, numerous groups of migrants, including the Philistines, landed in this area. What is especially noteworthy is that after just a few generations, the Philistines rapidly intermarried with the local populations of the Levant. Their distinct genetic characteristics quickly faded, and they became an inseparable part of the society in their new land. Nevertheless, the Philistines still preserved unique cultural traits and customs, making them stand out among neighboring peoples. The Kozyrev mirror, the Soviet Union's time manipulation machine. In the history of science, bold ideas are not always welcomed by society or the academic community. Such is the story of Soviet astrophysicist Nikolai Kozyrev. He was one of the rare scientists willing to challenge all conventional beliefs when he proposed the hypothesis that time is not merely a dimension, but in fact, a form of energy that can be influenced, and perhaps even harnessed and used. After many years of research, Kozyrev and his colleagues developed a device called the Kozyrev mirror. In reality, these were large aluminum chambers, designed in a spiral shape. According to Kozyrev's theory, when a person sits inside this aluminum chamber, the aluminum walls amplify and concentrate a type of energy that he believed to be related to time itself. The goal was to alter, or even distort, a person's ordinary perception of the flow of time. What happened during experiments with the Kozyrev mirror astonished many people. Participants reported having strange experiences, such as feeling separated from their bodies, seeing images from the past or the future, or even communicating with others by thought alone without speaking. In some cases, people claimed to see glowing symbols appearing inside the aluminum chamber. Russian researchers conducted hundreds of experiments in the 1990s, involving thousands of volunteers from various countries. One shocking result was that the success rate of telepathic thought transmission between two people inside the aluminum chambers sometimes reached as high as 95%. There were also reports of strange phenomena occurring during these experiments, including claims that some people saw UFOs appearing near the laboratory. To explain these inexplicable events, some scientists proposed the existence of so-called torsion fields. This theory suggests that torsion fields exist alongside gravity and electromagnetism, enabling humans to transmit information instantaneously across great distances. However, according to supporters of this theory, torsion fields can be masked by the strong electromagnetic signals of modern society, such as those from satellites, phones, or Wi-Fi. For this reason, the hidden potential of human beings is said to be fading over time. For many people, The Kozyrev mirror is not merely a scientific invention. It stands as a symbol of mysteries that humanity has yet to unravel. Perhaps it is actually an ancient technology that once existed and has since been lost. Or perhaps the Kozyrev mirror is just an ordinary device that reminds us there is still so much about the world that lies beyond our understanding. The mysterious balloon incident at Neumayer 3 research station. Among the mysterious stories connected to Antarctica, the event of a strange balloon appearing in the sky above Germany's Neumayer Station 3 has certainly been one of the most talked about topics on the internet over the past decade. The incident began with a single, simple photograph, but it was this very photograph that sparked countless theories, even drawing in a series of questions about the secrets that nations may be hiding at this icy southern end of the Earth. Neumayer 3 Station is located on a vast expanse of white Antarctic ice, where only groups of experienced scientists and technicians can manage to survive through the harsh winter. On a day just like any other, some people managed to capture an image of a large balloon quietly drifting above the station. At first glance, this image seemed unremarkable. However, once the photo was posted online, it quickly became a hot topic of discussion because no one could provide a satisfactory explanation for the appearance of that balloon. Normally, weather balloons are commonly used in Antarctica to measure weather conditions, monitor the atmosphere, or serve scientific research about the environment. But in this case, there was no official announcement from Neumayer 3 Station or from any meteorological organization confirming the release of a balloon at that time. The silence from those responsible only made the photo the center of a series of theories. Some people believe that the balloon in question was not an ordinary weather balloon, but rather an unidentified flying object disguised in the sky. Some opinions lean toward the theory that this could be a highly secretive technology test device jointly deployed by the US, German alliance to serve undisclosed space or defense research projects. Others even assert that this balloon is proof of research related to alien technology, or that it is part of a top-secret project to collect signals and data from outer space. Across forums, big and small, the image of this mysterious balloon has become the inspiration for countless analysis articles, debates, and even hours-long investigative videos. Some skeptical researchers argue that all of this is simply over-interpretation of a blurry photograph, since under the harsh conditions of Antarctica, it is very difficult to accurately determine what the object really is. However, most conspiracy enthusiasts believe that the silence and lack of transparency from the scientists at Neumayer 3 Station is the strongest evidence that something unusual is happening beneath the eternal ice. Even to this day, the story of the mysterious balloon in the sky over Neumayer 3 remains one of the unsolved mysteries of the southernmost region of the Earth. No one knows for sure what that balloon was really carrying, who it belonged to, and whether behind it is a chain of events that goes far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The legend of the secret war in Antarctica, the British against the Nazis. In modern world history, there are stories that are widely passed down but exist on the border between reality and legend. The tale of the secret war between British forces and remnants of the Nazis, mentioned by Nexus magazine as part of a larger mysterious picture shrouding the frozen continent since World War II, is one of them. The story begins in the final years of the war. After the Nazis' defeat in Europe, many theories emerged, suggesting that certain elements of Nazi Germany had found their way to the most remote corners of the world to continue hiding and developing secret technology. Queen Maud Land is said to be the place where the Germans laid the foundation for their final secret base, calling it Neuschwabenland. Faced with increasingly dense rumors about Nazi activities in Antarctica, the British decided to act. According to reports in Nexus magazine, they quietly deployed a special task force to the southernmost region of the Earth, beginning with grueling training in the Falkland Islands. This unit was led by a veteran who had fought in the Yugoslav resistance and had been thoroughly trained in survival skills for the icy environment. When everything was ready, the British soldiers quietly set foot on Queen Maud Land with a single mission: to infiltrate and investigate the Nazis' secret base. During their search amid the snow and frigid mountains, they unexpectedly discovered a vast network of underground tunnels containing lakes, airplanes, and many facilities that no one could have imagined being built beneath the frozen ground. Most frightening were accounts of the appearance of beings known as the Polar Men, so-called super soldiers, believed to be the result of brutal genetic experiments designed to create humans capable of surviving and fighting in extreme cold conditions. The situation became increasingly dangerous as the British force was repeatedly attacked by the Polar Men. According to the accounts, only 2 people survived and managed to escape that icy hell, just in time to send one last telegram to headquarters with the message, "The polar men have found us." That was also their final communication before they lost all contact with the outside world. It did not end there. A second British unit was sent to Antarctica. Unlike the first group, this time they brought a large quantity of explosives, with the sole purpose of destroying all traces of the secret base beneath the ice. According to reports, after discovering the tunnel system and the strange facilities, the British troops detonated everything, causing the tunnels to collapse entirely and burying all evidence under hundreds of meters of ice and snow. After the campaign, all information related to this event was kept strictly confidential. The official explanation given was that those tunnels were merely natural ice caves formed over thousands of years, and the so-called polar men were, in fact, lost German soldiers who had become disoriented and driven mad by the harsh living conditions. There were no official reports about a secret base, unusual weapons, or brutal genetic experiments as described in the rumors. Yet, it is precisely this ambiguity and lack of transparency that has kept the legend of the secret war in Antarctica alive to this very day. The theory of Nazi collaboration with aliens and strange technology. For decades, conspiracy theories surrounding the advanced technology of the Nazis have always remained a popular topic for those fascinated by mysterious history and strange phenomena. One of the most intriguing hypotheses is the story that the Nazis received support from extraterrestrial forces, which enabled them to make technological leaps that the world at the time simply could not explain. According to this legend, as early as the 1930s and throughout World War II, Nazi scientists were not only racing to develop cutting-edge weapons, but were also involved in secret projects related to UFOs, and even genetic engineering with the goal of creating super soldiers capable of surpassing the normal biological limits of humans. Some believe that the Nazis' technological breakthroughs were not entirely the result of human invention, but instead came from contact and the transfer of knowledge from beings from beyond Earth. Skeptical researchers have suggested that the Nazis carried out a series of top-secret programs at underground bases beneath Antarctica's eternal ice. These underground cities were not just places of refuge, they were also centers for technological development, where German scientists conducted experiments they believed could change the fate of the world. These stories often focus on the idea that the Nazis succeeded in building real UFOs, flying saucers that, according to many, were later seen hovering or streaking across the frozen Antarctic sky at incredible speeds. In addition, many conspiracy theories expand the story into the realm of genetic engineering, claiming that German scientists secretly conducted experiments to create super soldiers with extraordinary resistance to cold and extreme conditions. The polar men were, in fact, the product of genetic modification programs, possibly even incorporating alien technology to enhance human physical and intellectual abilities to levels never seen before. Some stories claim that the Nazis' underground bases in Antarctica became hubs for UFOs, new energy weapons, and other mysterious technological achievements that humanity has still not been able to replicate. Some go so far as to say that high-ranking German officers secretly made contact with extraterrestrials, received blueprints and knowledge far beyond modern human understanding, and then applied them to build flying machines and weapons the world still considers impossible. However, it must be emphasized that, although these stories are extremely captivating and have been repeatedly discussed on various forums, there is still no scientific evidence or verified documentation published to support the theory that the Nazis ever collaborated with aliens. Most historians and experts agree that the majority of the technological achievements of Nazi Germany during World War II were the result of extraordinary human creativity and research during that era. The Pegasus plane crash in Antarctica. The crash of the Pegasus aircraft remains one of the most chilling and yet miraculous events ever to occur on this land. It is the story of the extraordinary survival of 80 people in the harshest icy wilderness on Earth, and at the same time, a testament to the ever-present dangers that anyone venturing into Antarctica may face. On the 8th of October, 1970, the military transport plane Lockheed C-121 Constellation, named Pegasus, departed from Christchurch Airport on a direct flight to McMurdo Station, the largest American research base in Antarctica. For the crew and passengers on board, this was considered a special expedition, but one that was relatively safe. However, just a small shift in the weather was enough to turn all plans upside down. Over the southern skies, Pegasus suddenly flew into a blinding snowstorm. It was a terrifying whiteout, where everything ahead vanished in a cold, icy mist. Nothing is worse for a pilot than having nearly zero visibility. The flight commander, with the composure of someone who had logged countless hours in all kinds of harsh weather, was forced to attempt landing 5 separate times. 5 failed attempts meant 5 brushes with disaster, as each landing on the slippery ice was a battle against wind and freezing temperatures. On the final landing attempt, Pegasus struck a large snow mound, causing the right landing gear to snap off. The entire fuselage spun around on the ice like an unwilling dancer before finally coming to a halt in the silent cold. A miracle happened when all 80 people on board survived. No one lost their life in the accident. Once everyone evacuated the plane, they quickly set up makeshift shelter, rationed out what little food and water remained, and waited for the rescue team from McMurdo Station to arrive. It is hard to imagine the feelings of the survivors as they looked back at the Pegasus, once their hope for survival, now a silent witness to a disaster that had nearly claimed all their lives. After the accident, the Pegasus wreckage remained intact on the white ice near McMurdo, gradually becoming a special landmark, Pegasus Field. The plane's name was given to the runway as a way to commemorate and remind people of the extraordinary event in 1970. Pegasus Field became not only one of the largest and most important runways in Antarctica, but also a stopover point for thousands of scientists and explorers for many decades afterward. However, with climate change and the unusually rapid melting of the ice in recent years, Pegasus Field gradually became unsafe for aviation operations. In 2014, this historic runway was officially closed after many decades. Those who were once there still remember clearly the image of the Pegasus wreck, half buried in ice, lying silently as a witness to a period full of challenges. Today, the remains of Pegasus are still there amid the Antarctic ice, sometimes exposed under the brief summer sunlight, sometimes buried again beneath new layers of snow. For those who have seen it with their own eyes, it is not only a part of aviation history, but also a reminder of the fragility of humanity in the face of nature, and of the extraordinary ability to survive when courage and hope persist in the most perilous moments. The threat of volcanic disaster beneath the Antarctic ice. When people think of Antarctica, most only imagine endless frozen fields, howling winds, and massive sheets of ice that have blanketed the continent for millions of years. But few realize that beneath that thick layer of ice lies one of the largest underground volcanic systems on the planet. According to scientists, there are currently more than 100 volcanoes lying dormant beneath the Antarctic ice, and among them, the most famous is Mount Erebus, the only volcano on the Antarctic continent with a lava lake that bubbles year-round. The volcanic system in Antarctica is unlike anything else in the world. Because most of these volcanoes are hidden beneath layers of ice several kilometers thick, for decades, science was almost unable to detect their number or assess their potential danger. It was only when researchers began using ice-penetrating radar technology and modern seismic equipment that it became clear Antarctica is not just a silent, frozen continent, but also a powder keg lying dormant underground. One of the greatest concerns for scientists today is the prospect of the ice melting more rapidly due to global climate change. As the Earth's temperature rises, the ice covering these underground volcanoes will gradually thin or even disappear completely. This means the tremendous weight of the ice above will be significantly reduced. This mechanism can be likened to opening a bottle of soda that has been vigorously shaken. While the cap is still closed, the pressure is contained inside. But the moment you loosen the cap, gas and liquid explode outward. In the same way, when the pressure from the melting ice is released, the magma chambers below have the opportunity to erupt more violently than ever before. If even a single volcano erupts, the consequences are already hard to predict. But scientists warn that if multiple volcanoes were to awaken and erupt simultaneously beneath Antarctica, the consequences could far exceed anything humanity has ever imagined. In that scenario, the amount of ash and toxic gases released into the atmosphere would form a veil blocking the sun, causing a sharp drop in global temperatures. With sunlight unable to penetrate the dense layer of ash, crops would fail, growing seasons would collapse, weather patterns would shift unpredictably, and the lives of billions could be thrown into chaos for a prolonged period. While such a scenario may sound more like science fiction than reality, scientists believe this risk is entirely plausible, especially as Antarctic ice is melting at an unprecedented rate. However, it is important to emphasize that the processes of ice melting, pressure reduction, and volcanic eruption do not occur overnight, but unfold over hundreds of years, or even longer. This means that while we may never witness such a catastrophic scenario ourselves, future generations may one day face a very different Antarctica. Traces of a mass extinction of 56 million people revealed through Antarctic ice cores. One of the most shocking scientific discoveries in recent years is that researchers from Amy King's team, part of the British Antarctic Survey, uncovered evidence of a massive-scale extinction event by studying deep ice cores extracted from the Antarctic permafrost. Antarctic ice cores are not just lifeless columns of ice. In reality, they are fossil records of the atmosphere, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. When snow falls layer upon layer, it traps tiny air bubbles, each one a snapshot of Earth's atmosphere at the moment the snow settled. Over thousands of years, these layers of snow compress into ice, burying the air bubbles deeper in time. Thanks to this process, scientists can drill deep into the ice sheets and extract natural diaries documenting climate, atmospheric composition, and even major environmental upheavals that occurred in the distant past. When Amy King and her colleagues analyzed samples from ancient ice cores, they discovered an unusual shift in CO2's concentrations. This sharp decrease in global atmospheric CO2s coincided with the period from the 15th to the 17th century, a time known as the era when Europeans first set foot in the Americas. It was also when one of humanity's greatest tragedies took place, the mass extinction of the indigenous peoples of the Americas. It is estimated that as many as 56 million indigenous people perished in just around 150 years due to strange new diseases, warfare, and the devastating consequences of brutal colonization brought by Europeans. What is remarkable, as the scientists found, is that as millions of native people disappeared, vast forests and fields that had been left abandoned began to recover naturally. Trees and plants grew back, covering large areas of the Americas. This process absorbed a significant amount of CO2s from the atmosphere, enough that it became locked within the ice layers at the farthest reaches of the southern world. By reading this record of ice bubble air, scientists are not only able to track the extent of climate change, but can also clearly see the enormous impact that historical events have had on the entire planet. It is proof that human actions, no matter how far away, sometimes tens of thousands of kilometers, can leave an indelible mark in Earth's history, carefully recorded in each tiny air bubble buried deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Polynesians discovered Antarctica before Europeans. For centuries, Western textbooks have taught that Antarctica was only truly discovered by humans in the early 19th century, when Russian, British, and American expeditions began recording the first voyages to reach this frozen continent. However, recent research findings from New Zealand have completely overturned that perception and opened a new and proud chapter in the history of Polynesian ocean exploration. Scientists from the University of Otago spend years collecting and analyzing legends, archaeological artifacts, and the folk culture of the Polynesian people. What is remarkable is that the stories passed down through generations reveal a little-known truth. As early as the 7th century AD, Polynesians organized epic voyages southward, crossing the vast Pacific Ocean, heading toward the cold waters of Antarctica. The leader of these historic journeys, named in the legends, was Hui Te Rangiora, a chief and a brilliant Polynesian explorer. Together with his crew, he sailed on large waka, braving the immense ocean and often facing storms, hunger, and the numbing cold of the southernmost regions. According to accounts in Polynesian culture, that icy land was called Te Tai Yuka Apia, meaning the sea as white as cassava flour, a phrase used to describe the endless, icy expanse, bright white like cassava powder stretched across the ocean. Folk records indicate that Hui Te Rangiora's fleet sailed close to the edge of the Antarctic ice and may even have set foot on gigantic ice floes, bringing back strange tales of a place where the sun never rises, where there is only thick fog and eternal ice. Remarkably, researchers found these descriptions in songs, drawings, and even artifacts passed down through generations, all consistently depicting a harsh southern land, completely different from the familiar tropical Polynesia. The Icebreak Event. Iceberg of Doom. At the beginning of 2023, a natural event captured the attention of the entire scientific world. A massive iceberg, larger in area than the city of Los Angeles, suddenly broke away from the Brunt Ice Shelf, one of the most famous and long-standing ice shelves in Antarctica. The event was quickly given a dramatic name by the international press, the Iceberg of Doom. The Brunt Ice Shelf has long been a key research area for scientists from the British Antarctic Survey. For years, experts have monitored every change in its structure, its cracks, and the movements of the ice. They recorded that for nearly a decade, a large crack had been gradually widening and deepening. The research team had predicted that a significant portion of the shelf would soon break off from the main ice mass. But when the moment actually came, the scale of the event exceeded all expectations. On the day the giant iceberg separated, many people imagined horrifying scenarios: rapidly rising sea levels, coastal cities flooded, and uncontrollable escalation of global climate change. However, experts quickly reassured the public that this event was entirely a natural process, not directly related to human activities or global warming. Even so, the sight of an iceberg over 600 square miles in area, roughly the size of Los Angeles, drifting into the Southern Ocean, was truly astonishing. For scientists, this was not only a large-scale natural experiment, but also a valuable opportunity to study the dynamics of ice shelves, the ways in which melting ice affects ocean currents, and the long-term impacts on polar ecosystems. After it broke away, the Iceberg of Doom began its solitary journey, drifting through the frigid sea ice, sometimes being battered by waves and broken into smaller pieces, gradually dissolving into the ocean. Some researchers believe that large-scale icebreak events like this serve as a stark reminder of the ceaseless movement and immense power of Antarctic nature, a place where even the mightiest ice masses cannot endure forever against the changes of time and the natural cycles of the Earth. The reptilian theory. Have you ever turned on the television, watched a political broadcast, or listened to a famous leader speak and felt a strange, indescribable sense that something just wasn't right about that person? If you have, you're not alone. David Icke, a former BBC sports reporter, once felt the same way. But unlike most people, David Icke decided to take things much further. He became the originator of one of the strangest and most controversial conspiracy theories of the 21st century, the reptilian theory, also known as the idea that lizard people disguised as humans are secretly controlling the entire world. Before becoming a symbol of the global conspiracy movement, David Icke was once a respected figure in British media. But at the end of 1998, David Icke suddenly abandoned his image as a television presenter and announced to the world that the most powerful leaders on Earth were, in fact, alien creatures of the reptilian species with the ability to shapeshift into human form. The names mentioned were not limited to British politicians. They spread worldwide, including Queen Elizabeth II, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, George W. Bush, and even entertainers like Bob Hope. All of them, according to Icke, were lizard people in disguise, descended from an ancient extraterrestrial race called the Anunnaki. According to Icke's theory, these lizard people arrived on Earth thousands of years ago. They not only used their shape-shifting abilities to blend into human society, but also secretly climbed to the most powerful positions. They were not merely lost alien beings, but absolute manipulators, controlling every aspect of human society through conspiracies and secret rituals that most of us would never witness. Going even further, David Icke believes that the lizard people do not just control the economy and politics, but also manipulate the psychology and emotions of humanity. According to Icke, the great tragedies of modern history, from the Holocaust to the 11th of September attacks in America to the Oklahoma City bombing, were all events planned, orchestrated, and controlled by the invisible hands of these lizard people in disguise. He claims that their goal is to keep humanity living in a state of anxiety, fear, and chaos in order to maintain a flow of negative energy to serve them. One of the most commonly cited pieces of evidence by believers in the reptilian theory is President John Kennedy's final speech. JFK strongly condemned the existence of secret societies and conspiracies manipulating society. He said, "The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society." Many believe that it was precisely because of these warnings that JFK was assassinated not long after, as a way to silence someone who had gotten too close to the truth about the forces operating behind the curtain of power. Not stopping at shocking claims, David Icke went on to produce numerous books, lectures, and countless videos, in which he tirelessly explained strange phenomena on television, unusual glances, and unexpected actions by politicians that he claimed were signs of lizard people in disguise. He was also known for wearing only turquoise shirts for many years, and insisting that everyone refer to him as the son of the Godhead. M. To most of us, the idea of lizard people might sound like a science fiction plot or a wild joke, but for David Icke and the millions who believe in him around the world, it is the most reasonable explanation for the strange and inexplicable things that modern society still cannot answer. The forbidden mystical text. In the West, when people mention mystical books, most immediately think of titles like The Key of Solomon or the Necronomicon. But in the Islamic world, no manuscript is as famous and as fiercely debated as Shams al-Ma'arif, also known as the Book of the Son of Knowledge. This book was compiled by Ahmad al-Buni, a Sufi scholar who lived in the 13th century in North Africa, in what is now Algeria. Ahmad al-Buni was not just a theologian, but also someone passionate about studying the secrets of metaphysics and mystical philosophy. His Shams al-Ma'arif is considered one of the earliest and most influential works on traditional Islamic magic. This book is not simply a guide to prayer or religious contemplation. It is a step-by-step manual for harnessing the power of numbers, letters, symbols, and, above all, the 99 names of Allah to perform miracles, communicate with angels, heal the sick, or even summon supernatural entities. The content of Shams al-Ma'arif goes far beyond ordinary prayer formulas. Readers will find within its pages numerous matrix diagrams, ancient incantations, and methods that combine astrology, theology, and symbolism to achieve metaphysical goals. According to Sufi beliefs, each name of Allah contains a special energy or quality. Ahmad al-Buni believed that if these names were recited, invoked, and used at the right moment, and with the correct rituals, a person could attain powers beyond imagination. Over the centuries, Shams al-Ma'arif was passed down in secret not only among scholars and Sufi clerics, but also entered folk culture through legends and mysterious tales. There are many stories claiming that anyone who used the book to perform magic would have to pay a price. Some believe that if the rituals are misused, the practitioner may be haunted by evil spirits, or even be accused of heresy and condemned by society. In many Islamic countries, possessing or distributing this book can result in severe legal consequences. For this reason, Shams al-Ma'arif is surrounded by an atmosphere of fear, curiosity, and reverence. Some see it as a treasure trove of mystical knowledge, while others consider it a dangerous curse best left untouched. Nevertheless, the fascination with uncovering the forbidden has never faded. By 2022, for the first time, Shams al-Ma'arif was fully translated into English, marking a sensational milestone not only in academic circles but also among enthusiasts of the occult worldwide. Immediately, this translation sparked heated debates about whether such mystical knowledge, considered by many to be far too dangerous for the uninitiated, should be made public. The US, government and experiments with the paranormal and superpowers. The real history of America in the 20th century contains almost unbelievable hidden chapters, where military and intelligence officials did not hesitate to invest millions of dollars into experiments tinged with the supernatural, from telepathy to the use of psychic powers in warfare. One of the first stories to launch this series of bizarre programs was the experiment known as the Great Dog ESP experiment, conducted by the US Army in 1952. At that time, military generals took seriously the hypothesis that dogs might possess extrasensory abilities they could harness for military purposes. Researchers gathered numerous dogs and attempted to train them to detect hidden objects and locate underwater mines, not by using their sense of smell as usual, but through psychic abilities. At first, the test results seemed promising, as some of the dogs did manage to find the targets in the correct locations. However, after repeated trials with increasingly rigorous testing, those initial successes gradually gave way to disappointment as the dogs behaved like ordinary animals. In the end, the program was deemed a failure, and the dogs returned to their familiar role as human companions. Nevertheless, the failure of the telepathic dog experiment did not discourage the US government. Throughout the Cold War, concerns over the Soviet Union's technological edge drove the CIA and various secret American agencies to pursue a wide range of peculiar programs, including research into psychic powers. These projects were not limited to dogs but expanded into many other fields: remote viewing, telepathy, mental communication over distance, and even attempts to locate unidentified flying objects. Those trained to see or sense events and objects thousands of miles away without using their normal senses became a secret part of intelligence operations, identifying enemy bases or even observing targets in the past. Other programs focused on testing communication through the ice in the Arctic, training submarine crews to send commands to each other without electronic signals. These stories may sound like the plot of a science fiction film, but in reality, they are all documented in classified government files. Annie Jacobson, a veteran investigative journalist and author of the well-known book Phenomena, spent years researching and interviewing insiders to shed light on these mysterious projects. In Phenomena, Jacobson vividly describes the entire landscape of America's psychic research programs, from thick, declassified reports and secret experiments in remote military bases to closed-door meetings about the possibility of creating super soldiers through unconventional means. While many of these projects were ultimately categorized as failures or baseless, the sheer amount of time, money, and effort that the US government invested in these superpower programs still surprises and fascinates many people to this day. The Illuminati. When the Illuminati is mentioned, most people immediately think of a powerful secret organization, a clandestine society believed to be behind some of the greatest upheavals in modern history. Countless stories, rumors, and conspiracy theories have persisted for centuries, yet few actually know the true origins of the Illuminati, or why this group became the very symbol of hidden control. Historical records show that the Illuminati was officially founded in 1776 in the region of Bavaria, southern Germany, under the leadership of Adam Weishaupt. In the beginning, the group did not bear the now famous name but was called the Perfectibilists. At that time, Adam Weishaupt was a young professor of law, driven by the desire to change a society still constrained by the Catholic Church and the conservative nobility. He believed that free thought, reason, and enlightenment ideals were the keys to creating a fairer and more civilized world. The Illuminati's original goal was to counteract the absolute influence of the Church and the traditional aristocracy. They built a network of elite members that included intellectuals, lawyers, officials, and even progressive nobles, all working together to spread Enlightenment thought and promote sweeping social reforms. To achieve these goals, the Illuminati devised plans to infiltrate centers of power, gradually taking control and reshaping the structures of authority toward a more progressive direction. However, the group's early success was also the reason they quickly drew the attention of the Bavarian authorities. In 1785, less than a decade after its founding, the Illuminati was discovered and suppressed by local authorities. Many documents, member lists, and action plans were seized. Adam Weishaupt lost his position and was forced to flee Bavaria to avoid prosecution. In theory, the Illuminati was officially dismantled and dissolved, with its members scattered or forced to operate in complete secrecy. But the story of the Illuminati did not end there. The mystery and clandestine scale of the group became fertile ground for conspiracy theories to grow and flourish for more than 200 years. Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Throughout the 20th century, the world witnessed waves of hatred, prejudice, and unprecedented violence directed at the Jewish community. One of the deepest and most toxic roots of this was the appearance of a document known as the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This text was not only a complete forgery, but also served as a powerful tool for sowing hatred, helping to ignite some of the most tragic upheavals in human history. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion first emerged in 1903 in the Russian Empire, at a time when society was riven by economic instability, political turmoil, and religious prejudices that had persisted for generations. The document spun a fantastical tale, accusing a secret group of Jewish elders of conspiring to seize power and control all nations, economies, and the global media. The reach of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion spread far beyond anything its creators might have imagined. From its very first appearance, the document was widely circulated throughout Russia and quickly spread across Europe to the United States and beyond. With inflammatory language, mysterious claims, and the specter of a supposed global conspiracy, the book became the source of countless waves of hatred and violence against Jews. Most notably, during the rise of Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi propaganda machine used the Protocols as a central tool to legitimize and incite anti-Semitic policies, ultimately leading to the horrific tragedy of the Holocaust, the deadliest genocide in history. What is especially tragic is that, despite the efforts of countless scholars, journalists, and governments to expose the truth, the reality about the protocols of the Elders of Zion has often been distorted or forgotten. As early as 1921, the Times of London published a series of investigative articles proving that the book was a fabrication cobbled together from existing works of literature and political documents, with no real connection to the Jewish community. Subsequent independent investigations in Europe and America all confirmed that this was a deliberate hoax, created to serve extreme political and religious agendas. The Stargate theory in Iraq. The story of the so-called Stargate in Iraq is a theory that claims the 2003 war was not just about weapons of mass destruction, as commonly reported by the media, but was driven by a much more secret goal: alien technology. The leading proponent of this conspiracy theory is Michael Salla, an expert in the field known as exopolitics. According to Michael Salla, Saddam Hussein was not only infamous for his secret weapons programs, but was also said to have possessed an interplanetary portal located deep beneath an ancient ziggurat. Ziggurats are step pyramid temples built in ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of the Sumerian civilization. According to Salla, beneath this ancient ground was hidden a piece of alien technology left over from a distant era, which allowed connection or travel between worlds and could represent a source of unimaginable power for any nation that controlled it. According to this theory, the US government and its allies did not launch the 2003 attack on Iraq solely because of intelligence about weapons of mass destruction. The real motivation, it claims, was the desire to control this secret Stargate, preventing alien technology from falling into the hands of powers unfriendly to the West. Many suggest that military operations, the raiding of archaeological sites, and even the removal of historical artifacts during and after the war were all carried out with the ultimate goal of identifying and securing the portal and the secrets of alien civilization. Michael Salla and several other independent researchers even assert that similar technologies once existed elsewhere on Earth. They argue that the world's oldest pyramid is not actually in Egypt, but lies deep beneath Antarctica's ice, and that alien civilizations left behind structures and devices far beyond the capabilities of modern humans. Some stories even go so far as to claim that the US Navy is operating a secret space fleet, much like what you might see in a science fiction film. However, taking a realistic look at the entire matter, there is no credible evidence that an interdimensional portal exists beneath the Iraqi desert, or that any alien technology has ever been discovered there. Still, this has done nothing to dampen the fascination these stories hold for many people. In some sense, such conspiracy theories reflect humanity's deep longing to explore mysteries that remain unsolved. They prompt us to question whether what the public knows about history, war, and humanity's place in the universe is truly the whole story. For many older Americans, those who have lived through the shocks of the Cold War and decades of global upheaval, ideas like the Stargate theory are not just thrilling stories, but also reminders that there is still so much about this world we have yet to see or understand. The fish gods and the theory of ancient aliens in Sumerian times. Have you ever imagined a day when a merman suddenly jumps out of the ocean and starts teaching you mathematics? Of course not. But thousands of years ago, there was a Sumerian resting by the shore of the Persian Gulf when a strange half-human, half-fish creature appeared and began teaching him mathematics. It sounds unbelievable, but according to ancient stories, this actually happened. That being was called Oannes. Some scholars, including the renowned scientist Carl Sagan, have questioned whether Oannes was a super-intelligent extraterrestrial, a cosmic teacher, or simply a substitute teacher from another dimension. According to ancient writers, Oannes had the body of a fish, a second head underneath the fish's head, and 2 human legs attached to the fish's tail. The appearance was both bizarre and inconvenient, yet Oannes was not the only strange being. There were other similar creatures known as Apkallu, who were said to return again and again to check on the Sumerians, guiding them in science, law, and architecture. The Sumerians worshipped the gods called Anunnaki, but the story of the Apkallu was entirely different. Apkallu were not like the Anunnaki, who were said to have enslaved humanity. The Apkallu had only one purpose: to impart knowledge to mankind. Many historical sources mention their repeated visits, suggesting that this was more than just a single legend. They were like the first caretakers of humanity, ensuring that the earliest people stayed on the right path to building a better society. You do not have to believe that the Apkallu were aliens. Many scholars argue that the story of the Apkallu was simply a metaphor that the Sumerians used to explain their transformation from a hunter-gatherer existence to the construction of cities. Other theories suggest that the Apkallu were the remnants of a highly advanced civilization that was destroyed by a great flood, and that the survivors passed on their knowledge to the Sumerians before eventually being mythologized as these half-fish, half-human beings. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you found these mysteries fascinating, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming journeys. See you in the next video.